Welcome to Beacon of Creation, a weekly podcast on game design through the lens of Magic the Gathering. I'm Tim.
I'm Caillou. We're usually here as Beacon of Creation hosts, but today we come to you as something more. We're also judges for the Design League's third season.
Woo!
And, it's soon to be third full season because we're finally at the last round, our final two contestants. Why don't you take us through the finals prompt and each of our finals contestants?
Yeah, so for our Design League finals, this was free entry for a while. Then there was a top 8, top 6, 4, and then the top 2. We've got Provocative versus former host Bradley Rose. We got the away team and the home team. I don't know, except that Provocative's the favorite.
Provocative has had a really strong run. Is it, I think, highest score for every other round up until the finals?
That might be right, yeah.
But that also means this is their round to lose, So
I know Brad would love to be the underdog in any situations. I think this is a role that suits him just fine. But let's get into what the actual challenge prompt was. In the past, we had kind of like boosters, and we do like a one-by-one unpacking of the boosters for the finals here. But here we got something a little different. Each competitor had to design a standard 60-card constructed deck of all new cards. The deck name is Jund Builder-Bear. The deck colors, as you might guess from Jund, are black, red, and green. And then the archetype should be Artifact, Sacrifice, Mid-Range. They're going to be submitting 13 unique cards. And then there's kind of an interesting breakdown that we've got here where they have to have 5 of those cards be 4-ofs in the deck and not lands. 4 of the cards be 3-ofs, 1 2-of, 2 1-ofs, and 1 new land for this deck here. So we got to have a bunch of cards that we're going to see a lot of, and then a couple cards that we should only see a couple of. And I don't know how... It should be interesting to see how they use those slots.
It's easy to define like a 4-of because it's like, oh, okay, yeah, this is the card that is deck defining and whatever. But then when you get to something like a 1-off, like what encourages a deck to run a 1-off? So are we going to see like some potential tutors in here for like maybe like a toolbox, especially like, one of the most iconic artifacts of all time being Birthing Pod. Even though it doesn't go in artifact decks itself. So I wonder if people will draw on that history and use that to justify 1-ofs. 1-ofs can also just be like, sometimes you just want like 5 early interactive pieces, or like you want like a density of early interactive pieces, and it's just like I'm running 4 of the best hand attack and 1 kind of subpar hand attack, but it makes sure that I have like enough density so that like my percentage of hitting interaction within the first so and so turns is higher. So I think it's gonna be cool.
Or in like a control context, we might see more of like, I have a couple 1-ofs that help me beat other control decks, but aren't super relevant otherwise, because I don't actually really need that many of them. If the game's going that long, I'll find this card eventually. I guess from there, they're also allowed to give us a 250-word blurb to describe the deck, sales pitch, tournament report, etc. I have not looked at either of these links at all, so I don't know what kind of blurb we got from each of them. And we rolled a 2-sided die in the chat here before we recorded, and it came up 2, so we're going to be doing Brad's pack first.
Yeah, and I think it makes sense, to do the underdog. Based on the narrative we've built up. I think that role ended up working out pretty nice.
All right. Okay, I'm going to click on this link. I've not looked at this before. And then we got the blurb first. We want to do blurb first, or we want to do cards first? What do you think?
I've opened up the blurb, and it doesn't actually say anything about the individual cards. So I think let's read this out first. And we've got some parts. Actually, okay. I kind of want to see if we can... Bradley has written a little script here with 3 roles, and one of them being Bradley himself. I want to see if we can grab Bradley quickly, Bradley Rose in the role of Bradley Rose. Okay, Bradley's jumping in.
All right.
I guess I'll be Maria Bartholdi, you be Riley Knight, and Bradley will be Bradley.
Fair enough. I was going to call Riley being a differently spelled Riley myself.
Oh, yeah. All right, I so often just think of you as Tim that I forget the F. Riley behind.
I contain multitudes, I guess.
Hello.
Hello, hello, hello.
You got me. Got my blurb up.
All right.
Welcome back to day 2 of Pro Tour Girapur. I'll be throwing it over to Riley for a deck tech with one of the rising stars of this tournament.
Thank you, Maria. With me now is Bradley Rose, who is piloting a fresh build of Jund Builder-Bear and is currently undefeated.
Yeah, unreal. I've never dayed 2 before.
I'll knock on this wooden table for you. Anyway, for those unfamiliar with the deck, what's the game plan?
So this is based on the Builder Bear shell popularized with the release of Tubular Times at Galaxy Mall. With Girapur Wonder of Kaladesh, Gonti's Family Ring adds powerful disruption to the deck. This is key to keeping the artifact sacrifice engine going while still keeping a mid-range strategy.
How'd you arrive at the changes for this list?
Mainly removal from Brawl Stadia Let's Rock. It was too redundant and slow alongside other options. But don't sleep on Amplified Shock. Sacrificing a blood token and burning the player discounts Ravenous Sandworm twice.
What gives this deck the advantage this weekend?
A couple of Surviving and Desperate cards work well with the meta, since gifting blood tokens with Vampire's Herald doesn't help most decks in the field. Those same decks don't play much of the latest set's new artifact creatures. Great news for Blood Hunter.
Bradley, thanks for chatting with us. Was a pleasure.
Likewise.
Back to you, Maria.
All right, thank you, Brad.
We got a live reading of the blurb.
Yeah. Well, that was cool. Anything else?
Oh, shh.
No, we haven't looked at any cards yet, so we don't actually know what those mean.
Oh, that's funny, knowing that. All right, cool. All right, well, good luck.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, okay, so some interesting tidbits. We have some set names.
Yeah.
We have Tubular Times at Galaxy Mall, which sounds awesome. It sounds like a black border version of whatever the latest unset was. I forgot the name.
Infinity, yeah.
Infinity, yeah. Girapur Wonder of Kaladesh. So we've got a return set to Kaladesh. And then some Brawl Stadia Let's Rock. I'm loving the vibes of Brawl Stadia and Tubular Times at Galaxy Mall. Brawl Stadia gives me like wrestling vibes, but Let's Rock gives me kind of like Battle of the Bands. Maybe it is a Battle of the Bands set. Especially with like amplified shock. You know, it could be a guitar amp.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Twisted Metal or what was the old like Double Fine kind of games too.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I've also forgotten the name. And then Surviving and Desperate sounds kind of like a general, maybe survival horror-y type thing. Gifting Blood is interesting. So using gifting from the new, I'm assuming it's using gifting from Bloomborough.
Yeah.
And gifting blood is an interesting way of doing blood donation. So it might be the blood donation as a concept gives me a little bit of more modern fantasy vibes.
Yeah, you're right. I'm excited.
I was saying we have some card numbers here, and it looks like, okay, there's Zoe Smashing Guitarist and Heavy Metal Axe and Fatal Frequency. It does feels like very Battle of the Bands. Handy Goif is one I'm interested to see. And a card called Gremlin Mode? Okay.
The one of the one-ofs, Gremlin Mode, and then Awakened Mall Attraction is the other one-of.
I gotta say, I think that this, purely on a name basis, this is doing a lot to be compelling. Like, especially given that we were hoping that the contestants would make their cards individually distinct, like in terms of like the feel of sets. I think that this has achieved that pretty reasonably. Yeah,
because part of the prompt here is that it's from like a pseudo standard format that has like 3 to 6 sets in it. I have still not looked at a card yet, though. I'm getting excited. How about you?
Yeah. Okay. Far be it for me to keep you from it.
All right, I'll take the first one here. We can alternate. The first one here is going to be the land, Blood Boil Bog. It's a land at rare. This land enters tapped unless you spilled blood this turn. And then in parentheses, When you sacrifice a blood token or a source you control causes an opponent to lose life, you spill blood. And then it's tap, add black or red. Flavor text: fallen civilizations memorialized by pits of steaming goo. That started very dramatic and then turned kind of goofy, so I don't know which set that's from.
I'd assume it's Surviving and Despre because, like, you know, the fallen civilizations, the mention of like spilling blood. That is interesting because like Brad's blurb said that like decks don't get a lot out of sacrificing blood, but then here's a mechanic that's straight up like, hey, if you sacrifice blood, good stuff happens. It's very flavorfully evocative. At first I was like, okay, sacrificing a blood token feels like a little bit narrow. Like how but then on the flip side, the other condition is basically spectacle.
Spectacle, yeah. Lost life this turn. A source you control causes an opponent to lose life. Yeah, that is there any difference? I guess spectacle is always a cost, whereas this is more of a condition. It's kind of funny to see, you know, the aggro card. I guess this isn't aggro. This is mid-range. I got to get a little damage in, and then I have untapped dual lands.
Yeah, but I agree in the sense of like spilling blood feels like with the damage thing, it feels like, oh yeah, this is an aggressive mechanic.
Would we get 10 or 5 spilling blood, you know, cycled up lands? Is every color pair going to spill blood?
Assume that this is like an ally cycle of lands. It's kind of the vibe it gives me. Okay, next card. Gonti's Family Ring. It's a legendary artifact for a single black mana. This artifact enters, you may pay 2 life. If you do, target opponent reveals... okay. Target opponent reveals their hand, you may choose a non-land permanent card from it. That player discards that card. When this artifact is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you may pay black. If you do, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Okay, so we were talking about hand attack? Yeah, okay. Non-land permanent is obviously worse than actual factual Thoughtseize.
Non-land permanent. Oh, yeah. I was like, well, how is this not Thoughtseize? This is definitely not Thoughtseize. What am I missing? Oh, it's that a permanent. It has to hit a permanent card. It's kind of like the opposite of duress.
Also, when Brad's blurb mentioned Gonti's Family Ring, I had a moment of like, do Aetherborn have families? Because of like their whole short life deal. And I looked it up. According to the MTG fandom wiki page, families in quotes of Aetherborn lay territorial claim to areas where young Aetherborn have manifested and instruct them in the ways of their kind. So it's more like a communal thing than our strict understanding of like genealogical family. But they do have family.
So yeah, when it enters, you may pay 2 life. So if their hand is empty, you can just kind of lay this out and then sacrifice it to get the second effect. But for the most part, you're going to probably be doing that first thing, pay 2 life, look at their hand, hit their creature, hit their artifact, hit their enchantment, something like that. Then they discard that. You lose 2 life, that's fine. Because on the second half, when it's put in the graveyard from the battlefield, you can basically cast Raise Dead. You could pay black to get a creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Like,
obviously, Raise Dead is not usually a competitive level card, but then when you're getting it out as like a little extra bonus on top of you're sacking this for value, you've already got an ETB hand attack off. All of a sudden, you're grinding your opponent pretty effectively.
Yeah, and we're sort of expecting there to be ways to sacrifice artifacts, but I guess we don't know quite how easy it is and quite how, you know, will be hard to have mana up. I guess if you're generating mana by sacrificing artifacts, maybe that's even easier to do. This is a pretty appealing card and fun, and you know, in order for it to really work and be a good card, you have to be doing the synergies. So yeah, you need to be playing this deck in order for this to work, and that seems fun.
Yeah.
All right, how are we feeling about moving to the next one?
Hit me with it.
All right, we had to include a card named Builder Bear, and it's time for that. This is Builder Bear with Seth's Mechanic. It's 1 and a green for a 2/2 creature bear artificer, and it's a rare. 2 mana 2/2, not an artifact itself. When this creature enters or at the beginning of your upkeep, choose 1. If you don't control a toy, create a 0/1 colorless toy artifact creature token. Or, for each artifact creature you control, put your choice of a 1/1 Death Touch, Reach, trample, or vigilance counter on that creature.
Oh boy.
So this is a lot of ongoing value.
Yeah. Huh. Because the toy can be like just a really effective chump blocker, or if you're looking to go aggro, it does feel a little bit like a Steel Overseer or whatever it's called in 2024.
Yeah, I was thinking of that too.
Yeah. Like obviously it doesn't self buff, which is important, but you get the toy on you're going to get the toy on ETB, and then that's going to be buffed. Huh.
Yeah, Steel Overseer was the 2 mana for a 1/1 artifact creature that tapped to put just a +1/+1 counter on each artifact creature you control.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of like you're saying, this Build-A-Bear itself is not an artifact, but it sort of creates one on enter the battlefield. So it sort of creates like a baby Steel Overseer to be buffed along with your other artifact creatures.
And I'm assuming that this is from Tubular Times at Galaxy Mall.
It's got like a cassette icon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I guess cassette icon could also be Brawl Stadia Let's Rock, but
Oh yeah.
I think Build-A-Bear would be a little weird.
Do you think this Build-A-Bear is evil? Do you think it's happy? What's your vibe on the if you saw a picture for Build-A-Bear? There's no art for these cards. What would you imagine?
I think the toy token makes me think that it's happy. Happy, but maybe a little off-putting, like in the way where it's like a machine is creating its own life kind of deal.
Yeah. Bear Artificer. Maybe that means it's like a bear person.
I think it is. I think it is a bear person, probably. Power level wise, on one hand, it is pretty pushed because we did ask for Build-A-Bear to be like the titular card of the deck.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. But also, I don't know. My gut instinct is like this might be a little too much, Chief.
Yeah, for this to really hit hard, you need to have multiple artifact creatures, like at a standard level. Like in draft, like this does seem quite nice, quite good. But that's not really what we're worried about. We're like, how does this feel in a standard thing?
Yeah, I guess even standard.
If it's going to be that good, it's pretty easy to kill. If you have no other artifact creatures, this is not really like if there were no other artifact creatures in the deck besides the toy. This would probably not be a standard card to me.
Yeah, that makes sense.
We're assuming we're going to see more, but
yeah, I might be overestimating it but I think that the repeated group pump along with the 2-3 words of stats over 2 bodies, I'm like, But again, it does take a turn cycle to really. I do think that there's some scenarios where you drop this, it puts like a trample counter on all your things.
Yeah.
I also wonder if being able to natively put Death Touch Trample on all your on like the same creature is a choice that Wizards would make, especially when it's got it's
over the course of like
for the Death Touch Trample interaction.
Your opponent gets time to interact with it, so I guess you're just thinking from a rules like is that rules too complicated? Yeah, I guess because it's all in one card.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of a lot of keywords.
Yeah.
Next card is another non-artifact creature. It's Candy Goyf. For red and a green, it's a Lurgoyf. This creature's power is equal to the number of abilities from among flying, first strike, double strike, death touch, haste, you know the drill, found among creatures and creature cards in graveyards, and its toughness is equal to that number +1. Okay, interesting that this also counts your opponent's This counts your opponent's field and graveyard as well, which I'd have to look at. I guess Necrogoyf might have done that, but that's also a Modern Horizons card. I don't know if they do that in a standard set.
Yeah, it doesn't have the main problem that counting your opponent's stuff, which they'd like go to Lightning Bolt it, and by casting Lightning Bolt, you make the Goyf too big. Like it doesn't have that kind of gotchaness.
Yeah, there's not the gotchaness, but it's just sort of like a tracking thing.
Oh, I forgot that had Reach, the creature that I played. Yeah, I forgot it had Vigilance because it doesn't matter. Yeah, okay.
Okay, and this seems pretty neat, and like I think juxtaposing with Build-A-Bear is pretty neat because it also with Build-A-Bear you can if you have enough creatures you can pump this by 4 in one turn, just like you get Death Touch, you get Reach, you get Trample, and you get Vigilance, and Candy Goyf gets +4/+4. I
was thinking of it all getting the same type, but I think you might be right where you can for each of them, you could put a different counter on them and really pump up the Candy Goyf. Okay. And it doesn't get any keywords. So this Candy Goyf is, in its function, closer to Tarmogoyf than some other things. Like it's just going to be a very large creature by itself.
I want to see a one, because to make this really playable, I need to see like a green or red 1-drop with 2 keywords. Maybe like a dinky haste. I don't know, haste reach seems really dumb. Maybe I'm tripping, but maybe like a haste menace is quite good. I don't know. It's some tiny little 1-drop dinky beater that maybe like you sack, like when it dies it does like something small, so it's a good sack target, and then if you curve if you curve it into Candy Goyf, you can start threatening to put the beats on.
Yeah, because we really want something that has a lot of keywords. Like we want that Vampire Nighthawk with flying Death Touch lifelink, or we want like from Bloomburrow the Galewind Moose, which has Flash and Vigilance and Reach and Trample. Though I don't think Flash would count here. Yeah, Flash, it looks like, isn't in that list. Anyhow.
or like a Faithless Looting alike, so you can bin some creatures. Yeah, I think that we've seen like the stat creep on. Like, I'm thinking about the adversaries from mid most prominently, where like the stat creep recently is like pretty high. Like we get like 2-drops with like chunky stats that also do other things pretty frequently now for standard. Like also like Inti. And like for just a beater to be worth it in like a standard mid-range deck, it's really like this has got to be, you should be able to hit like 4-5 pretty consistently. It like if you build around it.
Yeah. If you're not hitting 4 or 5, I would say you're not playing this card.
Yeah.
I feel like it's not quite to that mythic level for me. I don't know. Maybe Modern Horizons burned some of the luster on the Goyf name. Like I've already seen like several cool Goyfs recently. 6 months ago, this would have been like a really funny reference. And now it's like, there's already 4 of them in Vintage Cube now. So
I think that.
Do you like Candy Goyf? Is that a fun ref to you?
It's a fun ref. And I think that I'm less like I think there are some things which read as distinctly not mythic to me. I think that this is sort of like a callback. I could see it being fudged into like a mythic slot, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So what's the next one we got?
Our next one here is called Vampire's Herald. It's a 1 and a black for a 1/1, so it's a 2-mana 1/1. It's a creature human minion. When this enters, each player sacrifices a creature or a planeswalker. Each player who can't discards a card. Each player creates a blood token. We and my liege are in for a treat.
Okay. Platecrafter got a little skinnier. Let's go. So it looks like it isn't literally gift a blood token. Very sad. But I think that I like this a lot. I like that, especially like in a sack deck where you're expecting to get you're expecting to outvalue your opponent on the board, and your thing is like, well, I'm giving you a blood token, and sure, that gives you card selection, but I'm going to get way better use out of that. So this feels like a classic Jund mid-range card, right? Where you're like, I'm going to play a low resource game, and then just outvalue you because my cards are better.
Yeah, no particular mode of this is incredible, but it's always doing something. The baseline thing that you do with this is you just play this, it sacks itself, and your opponent discards a card. And then you both create blood tokens. If your opponent has 1 creature, well, this is kind of a removal spell that also creates a blood token for each player. If your opponent has more creatures, this starts to taper off a little bit, but maybe it's still hitting some pretty good. Presumably your opponents aren't all on sacrifice decks with disposable creatures, and then you really need that blood for reasons we still haven't found out yet, but you really need that blood, so you're willing to play this card that, is kind of only okay otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the Symmetrical Edict is still pretty.
Am I too hard on it?
Yeah, because I think that especially I think being able to hit Planeswalkers is so damaging for some decks, because they usually tend to be more expensive.
Oh, Planeswalker, yeah.
Like if you're combining this with like more targeted removal, I think that I think it's probably worth it. Platecrafter is reasonably playable, and I think that cheapening it and so making it on the point of the curve where interaction is more important, I think is pretty decent.
Yeah, getting it at two instead of 3 is quite nice, for sure.
Okay, next up we have Amplified Shock. 1 and a red for an instant. As an additional cost to cast a spell, you may sacrifice an artifact. It shocks if you didn't kick it. It bolts if you did kick it. Pretty simple. It looks like this is the Battle of the Band set. It's got a little guitar neck on the set symbol. In Kylem's Band Battle Arenas, the amps are turned up to 11,000.
We should have known. We should have known it was Kylem.
Yeah, we got a little Spinal Tap reference in there. Let's go.
11,000. All right, so we got shock here. We can spend an artifact to get 1 extra damage, which kind of puts it in the... I'm hoping that I just want to sack artifacts for their own sake. Because even sacking a blood token to get that 1 extra damage, that's a cost.
Mm-hmm.
It's not free.
Like, shock into bolt is kind of like a classic formula we've been seeing as a common. Like,
yeah.
Lots of times when we say 2024 card, I think it's usually for like a lot more powerful, but this feels like 2024 Galvanic Blast, if that makes sense. Where I think they've learned to respect that in the decks that care about it, 2 to 4 is a huge jump.
And this is like any target. This isn't just to creatures. A lot of like 1 mana red standard burn spells these days are not able to target players. But this one is allowed to. So is this saying that like this deck is trying to, turn the corner and then put on a lot of pressure, fire off a lightning bolt or 2, sack their last creature to finish your opponent off?
I assume so. Like Candy Goyf, like I think that you can't be playing Candy Goyf and not trying
Candy
to
Goyf. That's true.
Rush down your opponent to some degree. Okay, hit us with our next card.
Our next card here is going to be Zoe, Smashing Guitarist. This is 2 and a red for a 3/3, 3 mana 3/3, legendary creature, Azra Bard at rare. So 3 mana 3/3. All right, it's got first strike. We need that for Candy Goyf. Whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, you may sacrifice an instrument attached to this creature. If you do, untap each creature that attacked this turn. There is an additional combat phase after this phase. Flavor text here. Stuff breaks anyway. Make memories.
Okay, so instrument.
All right, this is not a...
I'm just saying. I'm saying like instrument better be like a really easy to get token type. Otherwise, this feel like if you're spending actual cards on this, I don't know how standard playable this ends up being.
Yeah, I was thinking because I think that what was the pirate that we just got breaches? It's like a goblin pirate, but he's like 3 mana 3/3 first striker. And that guy, when you attack, you just get a thing. You get some treasure, you get to make something not block, and so on. Here, it's the opposite. It's like you need to pay an additional thing into it in order to get something. The thing you get is quite good. Getting an extra combat phase, that's one of the best prizes you can get. That's better than draw a card. That's better than a lot of other things. Are we more aggressive than we realized?
I guess so. I think midrange does typically want it, like especially we're thinking about Jund historically. It is like you're creating low resource games and then just presenting answers, like presenting threats that demand answers back to back kind of deal. So this kind of fits that. Yeah, I mean, like I think that like you were mentioning with breaches is like basically like this is already a hard to block creature, and then you get like options of like this thing can't block, make a treasure, accelerate yourself, or just get a card.
Yeah.
And I think it's really funny that of the red creatures that impulse draw on attack, that wasn't the playable one from that set. Or maybe not playable, but that wasn't the best one from that set. Like Inti was also from the same set. But no, yeah, I think I hope we're about halfway through the pack now, so I want to be seeing some real instrument density.
Yeah, I haven't seen some of the pieces that I'm expecting. Like, we've been hoping for that double keyword creature. We've been hoping for like just a lot of artifact creatures to pump with a builder bear. So we got a lot of different themes going on, but it hasn't felt we still got time, but we're getting a new theme here. Instruments. We haven't seen instruments yet. Okay, how are we going to get instruments? How are we going to get artifact creatures? How are we going to get keywords? Yeah, I'm excited for the rest of the cards.
Mid-range as an archetype is already, and especially like we know historically Jund. Mid-range as a concept is kind of just like you're playing the best in class cards, right? You're playing the most efficient interaction. You're playing the best threats. You're almost eschewing synergy in favor of just good stuffs. And we added a layer on top of that of like artifact stuff, right? So even that I think is stretching it a little bit, but artifacts is a broad thing. Now you're adding like I don't think that keywords is that much more narrow, but it does say like, hey, you're going to need some specific types of cards to make this work. And then now you're saying you need instruments to work, not just like there are some cards where it's like you want blood with this, you want instruments with this, and it's like
All right, what's next?
Next up, we have Blood Hunter, 1 black and a red. For an artifact creature, construct rogue. You got an artifact creature. Even as a keyword, it's got haste. When this creature enters, you may tap this creature. If you do, destroy target non-artifact creature and create a blood token.
Whoa! Wow! What?
Okay, and this is a 3/2.
Damn.
And oil ran out. They adapted by building converters that take a different liquid. And I appreciate that in addition to the mechanical whiplash of going from here's a 3-drop that's intentionally synergistic into here's a 3-drop that is insanely pushed on rate. Like we were just talking about individually good cards. This is nuts.
Yeah.
And there's also the tonal.
Yeah. Now this is a mid-range card.
There's also the tonal whiplash of like Galaxy Mall and like Brawlcadia are like yippee, good times, and then surviving and Despre is like out the edge.
The actual Terminator is here. The red eyes are looking at you, and now you're dead.
Wow.
I kind of like this design. The power level we were both a little shocked by, especially this comes in as uncommon. But I think it's cool. There's some fun things going on. There's this haste thing, so I can attack with it if I want to. But if attacks aren't good for me, I can instead immediately tap it as it enters. I kind of like that technology.
That is
I don't know.
technology. I am still like getting a 3/2 on top of your go for the throat and also a blood token is like I think that you tap this every time unless you're like I have lethal this turn, basically. Yeah. And sometimes this even will enable you to have lethal by just tapping it and like killing a blocker.
Yeah.
With go for the throat, right? I think that with standard, with like that type of removal, it's like it's good that there is a niche to be exploited where it's like, okay, this doesn't hit every threat, and so you're making a concession by playing this best in class thing. When you're attaching it to the exact type of thing that it can't hit already, I think this just creates sort of like this weird dynamic of like whoever plays their Blood Hunter. Whoever like curves into their Blood Hunter first wins kind of deal, where it's like, well, I play my blood, or like I feel like you end up in lots of boards where it's like, well, we're down to just Blood Hunters now. Yeah, obviously, preferable to have a card that is more playable than less playable for something like this, but this is a lot to me.
Yeah, this is a little over the top. I mean, we had a couple cards, or at least for me, that we're feeling a little soft for standard, and this is like, nope, don't worry, buddy, I gotcha.
Yeah, but
this is a wild one, and you get a blood token. You just get spotted a blood token.
I mean, flavorfully, that is pretty neat. You're just like, it has to be non-artifact so you can slurp the blood out of it. Duh.
Yeah, I guess like I had a big reaction to the specific rate of this, but I'm thinking like if something about this was a little different, if this were 4 mana, if this were something else, I would be pretty happy with this card. This does convey that like the Terminators are here, and this is why they won the war against humanity.
This at 4 mana, I think would nail it.
I guess maybe I'm in design challenge, like a review mindset, where it's like, what is the soul of this card, and is the soul of this card good? And I think it is. Were the specific numbers of this card good? I think we agree they're a little.
And
off.
I think it comes back around to what I was saying earlier, where it's like we'd rather have cards that are on the more playable end of the spectrum than less playable end of the spectrum. That is hitting the soul of constructed playable.
Yeah. This Blood Hunter's against my opponent's Candy Goy, so I'm just licking my lips. I'm happy to be a robot today.
And blood sugar is going to be high.
Oh yeah, better worry. See the doctor after. All right, our next card here is going to be Ravenous Sandworm. It's 4 green for a 6/6. 6 mana 6/6. How are we getting this into standard? This spell costs 2 less to cast for each time you spilled blood this turn. Wow. Then on top of that, you get a couple of things going on here. You've got Flash. You also have Haste.
Okay.
So you sacrifice 2 blood tokens. You kind of get like a kind of a refund on some of that mana you spent. You can cast this for 2 mana, so you spent 4 mana to crack 2 blood tokens and get a 6/6. 6/6 is pretty big. If you hit your opponent, a source you control causes an opponent to lose life this turn. You spill blood. So if you hit your opponent with 2 creatures, this is a 2 mana 6/6.
That's... Whew. On one hand, it's a vanilla 6/6. On the other hand, the 2 mana, like you're not playing this on curve, but it's a pretty big 6/6. And I've been waiting for a free artifact sack outlet, which we haven't seen yet. But that's another way that you could. I think especially that would enable it pre-combat, and potentially on your opponent's turn. Yeah.
Oh, if you just throw your blood tokens in the shredder, you don't sack them to loot.
Yeah.
You just say, sacrifice this artifact. Blah 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 blah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And then, like, can you imagine like turn 4 you sack 2 blood, or like turn 3 you play like some sort of, or let's say there's like a Viscera Seer for 1 mana. So you go like 1 mana Viscera Seer. Turn 2 you play the Plague Crafter. Turn 3 you play Blood Hunter. And then turn 4 untap. I'm gonna sack them to my Viscera, the blood tokens I got to my Viscera Seer. Double Ravenous Sandworm. Obviously, it requires pretty good mana to actually make that happen. But that is the dream. I think this is a hard card to evaluate, but I'm willing to give it the benefit of doubt.
Yeah, like the last one, this is like in that spiky zone that I think is kind of appealing as a standard card. But it's also the uncommon, and I'm just imagining how nuts this would be limited. My opponent better have blockers. I've got a turn 4 6/6 basically every time. Cool card, Ravenous Sandworm. Do we know what this little slash thing is? Is this the like surviving?
The slash thing is that's surviving and desperate. Yeah.
Okay. Sandworms. This is cool. I don't know. I kind of like this. This is the numbers are here where I'm like, oh, okay. It doesn't have an ETB, but it's still like a cool, powerful card.
I think it's one of those things where, like, in a vacuum, I think this is pretty neat. I think that as we tick down on cards, I'm a little bit like, okay, time's ticking to see some of the things that we were looking for. And Ravenous Sandworm is almost like, it's weird because it's like, it's generically good in some ways, but it's also not. It's a little bit play pattern dependent in a way that I think is a little bit less straightforward than Blood Hunter. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Next up, we have Fatal Frequency. 1 green and a black for a sorcery. Destroy target non-land, non-token permanent and all other permanents with the same mana value as that permanent. For each permanent destroyed this way, you get an applause counter. And then I'll get into applause counter in a second. But that's interesting. It's like a weird, it's a weird Maelstrom Pulse. It's Maelstrom Pulse, but you can't Wrath tokens. Which honestly, I think that I feel like they should let you Wrath tokens as a treat.
Here we're not doing that because we get an extra bonus on top of
That's fair. And hitting all permanents with the same mana value can be devastating, especially because this is just like...
Oh, it's mana value. It's not name. I was just reading name, so it's not Maelstrom Pulse. It's like a totally different thing.
It's the Maelstrom Pulse slot, but like being able to hit all permanents with the same mana value, like you're already having like essentially like an Anguished Unmaking slot. And then on top of that, sometimes you're tagging 2 permanents with it. It feels like in the past few slides, the first card has been like, oh, okay, yeah. And the second card has been like, sorry, read that to me again? Huh? Hello? Yeah, I think it's pretty...
Yeah. I guess that's why it has to be non-token, because it would not just like Maelstrom Pulse, you could kill all 3 soldier tokens with one spell. But this would destroy literally all tokens at the same time.
So applause counters are, for each applause counter you have, an attacking creature you control gets +1/+0 until end of turn. After combat on your turn, you lose an applause counter. Reminder text is a little weird, but I'm assuming the idea is at the start of combat, or like when you attack with a creature, you can choose to like not spend an applause counter, but basically point an applause counter at it, essentially.
Yeah. So if I have 3 applause counters, I get to hand out 3 +1 powers. And at the end of combat, you only lose 1 applause counter. I actually thought that was going to just completely reset. But I guess that makes sense. You have a really rockin' show, and it's like the audience is really high. It's going to take a couple songs before that dies down.
Encore.
Yeah.
Okay.
Double the applause counters you have.
As a set mechanic, I'm not sure how applause counters would play. Like, it encourages aggression, but I feel like it would be hard to actually meaningfully have synergy with. But I don't know.
This is one of my favorite cards so far. I kind of agree the applause counter thing is a little weird, but overall, I don't know. I'm pretty excited by this card. This is like the aggro smasher, because they try to play a couple 1-drops or a couple 2-drops. You get a pretty reliable 2-for-1 on
in a way that isn't like, and because usually when you're playing aggro, it's like, well, I'm begrudgingly running this wipe, but here it's like, well, against aggro, they go turn 1 1-drop, you play Amplified Shock, and they go turn 2 2 more 1-drops, turn 3 I play a 1-drop and a 2-drop, and then you go Fatal Frequency. I've 3-for-1'd you, and with a card that is good in every matchup, essentially.
Yeah. It's sorcery, which is kind of fun. Like, I don't get to just wait for them to commit their 3rd 1-drop and then blow them out like on their main phase. I have to kind of do it on my turn. I'm having fun with that one. All right, looks like we got 3 more. I don't want it to be over. Caillou, what are we going to do when we run out of cards?
Probably going to give our thoughts on the deck as a whole. That's probably what's going to happen.
Oh, yeah. All right. Fair enough.
But I think what is notable is that we are out of our 4-ofs and 3-ofs. So the next card we're talking about is going to be our 2-of, and then the last 2 cards are going to be 1-ofs.
Oh, okay. So we have officially left the zone of trying to see like that go-to Vampire Nighthawk triple keyword counter guide.
Or like a free sack outlet for artifacts.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's see what we do get. We've got Heavy Metal Axe. This is 2 black for an artifact instrument equipment. It's equipped for black, so 4 mana to play and then 2 more black mana to equip. When this artifact enters, you may destroy target creature. Then you may attach this artifact to a bard. Have we seen a bard?
There is one bard, which is Zoe.
Oh, okay. And then it has this ability word here, ability phrase, whatever you want to call that. Battle music. At the beginning of combat on each player's turn, as long as this artifact is attached to a creature, you may have target creature get +2/+0 and gain death touch until end of turn. If that creature isn't the equipped creature can't attack or block this turn.
Okay, so basically, it's like a flavor thing of like doing the bard thing.
Yeah, rather than being able to attack or block myself, I'm going to give a cool ability to somebody else. But if I give it to myself, I can still attack. If I only have one creature, my battle music still works and is fun. If I've got multiple creatures, now I'm making some choices. Do I have the bard be like a little tiny guy and then pumping up my bigger guys? Do I have it gives +2/+0 and death touch, so that kind of makes me think I want to give death touch to some little tokens and have them attack in. It'd be great at trading up.
Yeah, I think this is a neat card once you grok it. It takes a second to grok. I guess where I'm... Battle music is another mechanic. I don't know we don't know how much of the set it's going to be, but I think as a set mechanic, I'm a little sus of it because again, it's not something you can synergize with. It's something that can only really appear on these instruments. I think that I could see it as like maybe like there's like a cycle at uncommon and a cycle at rare, which isn't the worst, but it does feel a little bit like I think that the spilled blood is pretty reasonable because it's broad, right? It's like you've got like you've got like a way to build around it in one way,
very broad, yeah.
or like you can build around it in two different ways, but you can also just like hey, I can no matter what the board presence is, if I'm making blood tokens, I can reliably trigger this, and so I think there's a neat dynamic there. But then like battle music and applause counters, I'm a little more shaky on, and that does mean that we haven't seen mechanics from. We don't need to see mechanics from every set, but I'm just kind of going back and keeping track. It means we've seen mechanics from surviving on Deseri and the Battle of the Band set, but not from Galaxy Mall or Kaladesh.
Yeah. Getting more than a dozen cards out of battle music seems like it would be tough. But it feels like you could get there. You know, you have two commons and the color that cares most about the color pair that cares about bards. You have, you know, your 4, 5, 6 uncommons, then you have a couple rares and mythics. Feels like you can do that. And I think with this technology of the snap-on effect, I think that means that the cost doesn't have to be that high to get the battle music going. Like you just have to have a bard for a lot of these instruments, and if you have the bard just grabs it. You know, it just snaps into their hand. You can imagine that looking really cool. And I think the gameplay of the battle music is fun once it's attached. It's just how relevant is it? Is maybe the question.
I think that obviously with Zoe, this is a pretty awesome curve. You play Zoe on turn 3. You play Heavy Metal Axe turn 4. You kill one of their things. You equip this to Zoe. Zoe attacks as a 5/3 Death Touch first strike, which is basically like you have to throw something in. You have to throw something in front of her that's going to die.
That's fun.
Otherwise, she deals 5 damage to you, sacrifices Heavy Metal Axe, untaps the entire board, and swings in. Very strong curve. It's also you're playing. What the pieces are a 3 of and a 2 of, and the 2 Heavy Metal Axe being like a removal spell on its own is decent. It's pretty fine. But then Zoe basically being an extremely underrated card for standard on her own, I'm like, I think that it is now that we're getting to the instrument card in the deck. I'm like, I don't know. This feels like for a standard deck. And for a standard deck that's a mid-range deck, I'm not sure. If there were more instruments, I could see it being like, okay, you have a few different utility instruments.
Yeah, you don't really. There's no other instruments and there's no other bards, so this is more of like a fun thing that accidentally happens rather than something you're going to reliably do with this deck. And it does seem fun as an accidentally thing, but when the 2 cards involved are also kind of like questionable on their own, that's where it gets. Like, I don't ever want to sacrifice this artifact, right? Or I guess it did kill something, leave behind a junk, you know? I don't know. Is that good enough?
Okay, we're getting to the end, and then we can look at this afterwards. Like, what actually sacrifices artifacts? I think we literally have Amplified Shock and nothing else that sacrifices artifacts, nothing else that cares about, like, because I was looking for, like, stuff that, like general artifact sacrifice outlets, stuff that cares about when artifacts die. We kind of didn't get that.
Yeah, you want Engine.
Okay. Next up, we have Awakened Maul Attraction. 3 red for an artifact creature dragon. Flying trample for 5/5. Whenever you sacrifice an artifact, this creature gets +1/+0 until end of turn. So, okay. Right there, that is it. There is a card that cares about whenever you sacrifice an artifact. So I do. I think that being a flampler rather than a flayster is maybe. Yeah, especially as a 1 of, I'm like
flayster.
I think that this as a 4/4 flying haste is probably where I would print it, just as like this is great aggro top end.
Yeah, I guess it's like Shivan Dragon is maybe part of the reference here, and it's like, well, Shivan Dragon gains 1 power at a time. That's sort of what it does. It's an ancient, art piece.
What do you call it?
Yeah. if you're cracking clues, you're sort of paying 1 mana per power that you're giving this Shivan here. Yeah, I don't think I even want one of. I don't know. I'm a little skeptical of this card.
Yeah, like and it's one of those things where like in recent years we've got stuff like Terror of the Peaks, we've got like Bonehorde Dracosaur or whatever. We've gotten some really good 5 mana dragons in Standard. The bar is definitely a little higher.
Goldspan Dragon is like another one that.
And like Shivan Devastator. Yeah,
just having a haste flyer. Yeah. Yeah, this one's a miss for me. I've been liking the cards overall, their exact numbers or the deck composition we've been questionable of, but this one is just, I don't know, kind of a whiff, I think. All right, our last card is Gremlin Mode. This is X red for sorcery, so we're going to pay X and 2 more reds, so if I want X to be 4, that's 6 mana. Choose X. You may choose the same mode more than once. Then we have 3 modes. Sacrifice an artifact. If you do, create a 2/2 red gremlin creature token. Destroy an artifact an opponent controls. If no opponent controls an artifact, this build deals 1 damage to each opponent. Exile the top card of your library. You may play that card until the end of your next turn. These are some reasonable modes. I'm actually feeling good about this card. So if I do X equals 4, I do 6 mana. I can, I guess, remove an artifact or 2 and then start burning my opponent. I can convert my blood into gremlins, which feels pretty good, or I can just get some exile draw.
It's either a big burn spell or it's a big card advantage spell. So the first mode doesn't need to be crazy good. It offset that. So being sack an artifact, create a gremlin. It reads a little bad when you're putting it in this big X spell thing, but it's pretty fine as you already have either just kill them advantage or big cards advantage. This gives you a way to get board advantage if that's what you really need.
Yeah. The gremlin mode isn't make a bunch of 2/2s. It's sort of kind of similar to put a +1/+1 counter on a bunch of things, because these artifacts are probably cheap, chumpy little things that cost a mana, and then now I'm getting a 2 mana creature out of it.
Yeah, I almost wonder if this could be a 3/3 gremlin for a little more oomph.
Yeah, that would be pretty exciting. And then I feel like I can sacrifice things besides blood and feel good about it.
Mm-hmm.
There's no ramp that I remember in here, so we're not going that huge with the gremlin mode, but it is a one-off, so it is something that you're just meant to draw some of the time. Yeah.
Okay, and that's the list.
That is the list.
So looking back at Candy Goif, we've got 4 keywords in the pack other than Builder Bear. So we've got First Strike on Zoe, we've got Flying Trample on Awakened Mall Attraction, and we've got Haste on Bloodhunter and Ravenous Sandworm. And also, artifact creature density is we literally the only other artifact creature. Okay, we've got the 3 of Bloodhunter, and then we've got 1 Awakened Mall Attraction. All of the other creatures are non-artifact. So you're not actually pumping that much with Builder Bear, which is on one hand,
a
little bit of a relief power level wise, but also a little bit of a disappointment because there isn't really that much to do with it.
Yeah. I think the Bloodhunter is a fun combo with the Builder Bear, but there's nothing else besides that. The Builder Bear is, kind of disappointing, I guess.
There are cards in here, I think Builder Bear, Gonti's Family Ring, Amplified Shock, that point to okay, there's the core of something really interesting here. But I think for a deck list, it is pulling in too many directions. That being said, I think lots of the individual designs here are very compelling, and while they do sort of orbit standard power level, they are still within that orbit to a reasonable degree. So, yeah.
Yeah. I think I'd want or expect to see a little more card draw or at least card filtering in my mid-range deck. Because I could get a pretty heavy draw where I have the Heavy Metal Axe or the Sandworm, and I can't quite get them off the ground. In terms of 2-drops that I'm excited to play on turn 2, it's pretty much just the bear. Candy Goif is hard to get going because all the cards are expensive.
Yeah, there's no 1-drop. There's no loot spell. So you literally can't play Candy Goif turn 2 because there's no way to give it Like you can play turn 2, but then it's a 0/1.
Yeah, 0/1. Yeah. Yeah, and I guess except for the one of Awakened Mall Attraction, which we both agreed was maybe the worst, at least the weakest card in the pack. If you, except for that, you can only get it to a 2/3.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things I like about this pack where it's trying to not just be full, 18 pieces of cardboard, engine, synergy, mega, which you wanted some of.
Like some of, right? Because I think that there is like the Zoe heavy metal axe thing is a type of thing where it's like that's fine if the rest of your cards are sort of like forming this neat circle in the sense of like they're all just doing their thing and you're playing regular Magic, and then sometimes you're just like, well, I slam these 2 pieces of cardboard down and I make my opponent real sad because the rest of my deck is just pretty fine. Here it's like it feels like almost like, obviously with some exceptions, but almost every card here is like searching for something else to work with it. Like I think the exceptions are sort of like Builder Bear, Blood Hunter, and Fatal Frequency are all just like, I think those are, you see, like we were thinking about like potential rate issues with Blood Hunter, but those are the 3 like I think like most hit the mark in terms of like these are what a mid-range deck of this style would kind of look like or want.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a little hard to get the Sandworm to be that explosive because we don't have
Which
that
is
much
again,
early
given
game.
how aggressive lots of the cards lean is a little weird. But we do have good blood. Like I think that there is like, I guess there is like a pretty decent blood curve with like Vampire's Herald into Blood Hunter, and then turn 4 Ravenous Sandworm.
Yeah, what are my favorite cards to draw? What opening hand am I hoping for? I want a Gonti's Family Ring and a Blood Hunter, and then I know that I'm safe.
Yeah.
Creatures are not going to harm me.
Yeah, like you can just tear someone apart with like a Gonti's Family Ring into Vampire's Herald into Blood Hunter.
Yeah. I dare you to
And
play
then
that creature dead.
Fatal Frequency cleans up almost anything else. Yeah. I think okay. Let's go to favorite card. I think my favorite card is going to be Amplified Shock because it is the type of card where I look at it and I'm like, this feels like a card that should already exist. It is the essence of like a perfect common design. It reads simply. It encourages synergy. It is broad so that there's different ways you can work with it, but also puts you solidly into I'm looking for more artifacts. And also, the flavor text is awesome. It tells you where it's taking place, and it gives you like the tone. So I think Amplified Shock is easily my pick from this.
Yeah. Maybe just because I read it first, the Gonti's Family Ring might be my number 1. I like how it doesn't do everything, but you're getting a good amount of stuff. I guess in this deck, it's actually a lot worse than we thought it would be because you can't really sacrifice artifacts with this deck outside of your Amplified Shock. My other pick is the Maelstrom Pulse, the Fatal Frequency. I want to see how the applause counter is my favorite of the mechanics, I think. I want to see how that plays out. I want to play with applause counters. I guess with this deck, you don't get to do a ton of it, but I want to play in a world that has applause counters.
If there were more things that made like toy tokens, I think that like the toy tokens actually seem pretty neat because they're 0/1s, so they're easy natural chump blockers, but then you can like have like they're chump blockers, they're easy to sack, but they also go wide, so you can like have stuff with like your like it makes your applause counter so much more worth it because then taking permanents that are otherwise essentially trash and then being like, well, all of a sudden this is a legitimate attacker. So you could have cards that sort of like make toys as like essentially throwaway because it's like this is 0/1, whatever. It just blocks 1 attack. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, this is attacking actually as a 1/1 each turn and is getting additional artifact bonuses. What's going on?
I think this challenge really hit the feel like you're playing with cards from 4 different sets angle really well.
The set identities are really strong.
The cards do feel distinct. They're from different worlds. Almost every card in here is like, even without the set symbol, we could tell what it was going for. And it was something kind of new. I guess. Why, Candy Goy? Why? That's maybe my thing with this pack is that this card that seems like it should be the star. I guess the Builder-Bear is supposed to be the star, but outside of that, it's just a card that doesn't work in the pack. Why?
There is the thread. So once we're done judging, we can go back to the thread, because I know for the previous challenges, Bradley
Yeah.
has had like a really detailed process breakdown. So I wonder if it is what you were saying, right? Where it's like some of the cards were like maybe let's say Builder Bear, Amplified Shock were designed early, and then Bradley was like, well, I want or maybe like it's Builder Bear and then Candy Goif for this for Galaxy Mall set, and then it's like Bradley's like, okay, I want to give an identity to each of these different sets. What is a good way to like add identity? And then in looking through that, kind of like you, because there's times when you're like, especially in set design, where you're designing a bunch of cards, and then it's not until like you open them in a pack that you're like, oh, I've designed like 3 2-1s for 2 in the same color, right? They, and this might be a case of that where like individually, I think that these cards are like are pretty neat. Outside of maybe like Awakened Mall Attraction, I think all of these have like some core that is like, okay, this is cool. But then it might be a case of like it wasn't until the very end where Bradley like put it in the same pack image, and it's like, or like the same deck image. It's like, huh.
I think one of the cool things about this challenge, and we've had a couple of these, this is our third one now, there's not enough time to do like the perfect job on these challenges. You know what I mean? Like there's always flaws to all of these finalists, even though they're turning in a lot of amazing cards.
That's also the secret for like Magic design in general. There's never enough time to do the perfect job.
Yeah.
And that is like the biggest skill I think for lots of designers is knowing when to say this is good enough, and if something dictates that I should come back to it, I will. But otherwise, this is good. Yeah. Like we mentioned, we're coming at it from judge brain, so we're being a little more critical than I think that like, both the average person and us normally would be. I think that normally we're a lot more in what is the compelling core of this card. Like you can, like outside of this, outside of it's literally exactly like a competition. There's always room to, as long as a card has a compelling core, you can always adjust around it. You can either adjust the environment, you can adjust the card itself, whatever. So yeah.
Yeah. All right. I think that's probably about it for this submission, unless you got anything else you want to get in there.
That's good.
We're going to do another episode for Provocatives. I have not looked at a single card from that pack, so I have no clue how it compares. But at the end of that episode, we'll be able to do a little comparison. And then along with that episode, we'll also be doing all of our judging and scoring. And then probably about the time this episode goes up, we'll know who the winner is. But for now, we're in the dark. Before we get out of here, I always like to remind people of our monthly design challenges. Those are a little more, give us a fun card and we're going to have fun with it kind of challenge. A little less judgy, like maybe we've been for the last hour. So our current one, it's, I don't know. I've been really happy with the submissions for this. 8 legs a week. Design a card that makes an 8/8 octopus creature token. And then some bonus points. I want to hold your hand. Use the word hand on the card. Return to hand, opponent's hand, something. And then the other bonus points, Octopus's Garden. The card can potentially make more than one of these tokens. So not just 1/8/8, but more than that. And you have until the end of August 30th to get that in. What do you think when you think Octopus token? What are we trying to do here?
What is it's an Ikoria card. It's an enchantment for 1 U. Let me see.
When you cycle enough cards, you get
Yeah. Where it's like I've appeased the Elder God.
You want like a ritual. You want something that's we're in a circle chanting. Yeah, that was a fun card. Ominous Seas. When you draw a card, put a counter on it, and then once you've got 8 counters on it, you get a Kraken. That's kind of like an octopus.
Yeah.
Well, we've already gotten a lot of submissions, and we'd love to see yours too. So anyone that wants to get in there, please give us your card. But that'll be it for our podcast for now. Join the Discord. That's where all the action is. You can read up on that thread that we talked about. Reading the threads is one of the crazier parts of these, to see how much thought went into it besides what you got to see in the final submission. Anything else you want to tell people about, Kai?
Starting in September, both Revolution and MSCM are having new sets enter the format. We've got Clicks of Nylon, which is it's a tricolor shard set, which is inspired by different political ideologies, essentially. And it's a lot less dry and a lot more fun of a set than that premise sounds. And that's entering Revolution.
It's a little bit of a cousin of Capenna. It's got a little bit of mob groups working together in like kind of a more modern city.
Yeah, like the clicks part is literal. It is a little bit. It is very factiony, and that set is entering Revolution, which is our standard custom format. And then for MSCM, we're gonna have Toll Midnight by Time Spiraled, which is an experimental small set where it's a 4-player. It's interesting because it's a set designed for limited, but it's going to have a lot of interesting impact on constructed. But it's for a 4-player draft set where I believe you have something like, I forget, you have like extremely small decks. I think you have like 15 card decks or something. So lots of it enables a lot of interesting deck manipulation, or like a lot of interesting like tech that isn't usually possible in a normal draft set. And then we have End of Walensi by Purple Murasaki, which is pretty neat, like it sounds. Almost apocalypse is happening or will be happening fantasy set that, to me, I think the biggest draw of it is it's a very stable set. Previous sets where the excitement comes from this is going to rock the boat a bunch. I think this is the type of thing where it'll add cool new tools for decks that have already existed and breathe new life into them in a way that I think is, from how it seems, is going to encourage a lot more brewing and get meta diversity in there. So yeah, a little bit of a ramble there, but the bottom line is play custom formats, and next month is an excellent time to do just that.
Yeah, exciting. I hadn't heard about those sets, so I got to do some reading after this podcast. If you need to get at us on the Discord, I'm Tim F. Riley, your Caillou 102. And most of all, thanks for listening.
Bye.